So we're here with Kate McCallum. I'm very excited to interview Kate, and thank you so much for being a part of the interview series.
It's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know a little bit about how you hold conscious creativity and how you speak of the importance of living one's blueprint, of connecting the dots, and really aligning oneself internally and having that be expressed externally. I would love to get a sense from you of what that journey's been like for you, of attuning to and identifying what that, discovering really what your inner blueprint is, and what the journey has been in being authentic to it and expressing that, and how that's affected your various roles in your evolution in entertainment.
During my studies in early childhood education, I happened upon Maslow's work and Piaget and some of the great educational philosophers. And Maslow talked about self-actualization. So, and I said, what is that? What is self-actualization? And that aspect of pursuing that which we're here for and our highest and best. And so as I started to kind of consider that in my own personal work and my talents, gifts, and skills, I began really following that thread in my life. Fast forward, I got into the studios at 28 in 1985, and at the same time I found this wonderful center here in LA called the Philosophical Research Society, which is prs.org. You can find out information there about it, but it was founded by this wonderful modern day 20th century philosopher by the name of Manly P. Hall, and he really built it as a contemporary mystery school, so to speak. So the classes that were offered there were in every topic: metaphysics, philosophy, comparative religion. There was no one particular tradition being espoused or practiced. It was a smorgasbord for study. So, and they had a bookstore, much like the Bodhi Tree. All these incredible teachers taught there on a quarterly basis. So I was very fortunate to study there on nights and weekends. And then by day I was working on television shows with the showrunners of Miami Vice and Equalizer and Human Factor, Charles in Charge, those types of television shows, primetime. Amazing, American television with some of the top talent in the industry and learning. So at that point I pretty much figured out that I was producer material, and I really thought that producing would be my focus. And so fortunately I was working with the producers and the showrunners, but they were also writers, so I realized that writing was an extraordinary part of this, and started optioning material and writing treatments and putting material together that I could pitch and sell while I was working with these wonderful writers and producers as well. So as I went forward into my career, and also my own personal pursuit of my inner life and studies, I felt that there was a bit of a gap between those two worlds. And although I felt that story would be a wonderful mechanism for getting some of the incredible wisdom that I was learning, through these teachers and by being exposed to this amazing perennial wisdom at the PRS, I thought story would be an incredible vehicle for this awareness and information. I was very fortunate to take a 7-year curriculum class called Nature of the Soul through a teacher by the name of Georgia Lambert, who I met at the Philosophical Research Society. So myself and about 70 other people spent 7 years. Yeah, it was very interesting. And a lot of filmmakers were in that group too. There was a core of about 10 of us that were in that group who I became friends with, and it was very, very kind of in-depth study into the history of metaphysics and philosophy, as well as meditation practice. So every week we would start our classes with a very in-depth meditation process that just got more and more complex as time went on, and other techniques were added to it, and we became familiarized with the chakra system and esoteric anatomy and how to access our alignment, which is what Georgia would talk about a lot, which that alignment was giving us the ability to tap our higher consciousness.
Yes.
And really activate from a place of connection to source into our own ego and our through our mind and our emotions and our physical bodies. So we worked from a fourfold kind of awareness of the self, and then how to activate through meditation and the brain. Actually worked with brain science, early brain science, and became quite attuned to this process of how to activate the imagination and conscious creativity, which is where that term came from.
Yes,
from
yes.
that study.
So I'm so curious. There are a couple of questions that I have in regards to that. The first question that pops up is, it's so interesting that you started working in the industry and you saw that it was actually the producers who were writers also that had the clout to really get their message across. And so you were drawn to writing yourself. It sounds like it was at the same time you were in your studies at the Philosophical Research Society.
Exactly.
So I'm curious how your studies at PRS informed both the process of your writing as well as the content of what you wrote about.
That's a very good question, because what I ended up writing first as a full-on writer was a screenplay with a partner called Hildegard, and it was based on a nun from the 12th century who was a mystic and quite well known in the theological circles and women's studies programs, Hildegard von Bingen. In fact, there was a movie made about her that came out recently, but yes, by the director that was attached to our project.
Oh, how about that?
Exactly, how things go.
Yes.
So, but I discovered her through music, because she was also a composer, and became obsessed with her story. And this is before Braveheart was made, so the historical biopic was kind of, it wasn't really
uncharted territory.
Yeah. And so in studying Hildegard's life, I realized that she had such a rich, extraordinary life that it should be a film. That because we don't have a lot of women role models in history that have been so extraordinarily fulsome in their life's work, and she was really a Renaissance woman way before her time. She was a medieval woman, but she was a Renaissance woman in a medieval time. She was a writer and a mystic and a composer and a theologian, and she had her own convents and her own hospitals. Yeah, she was amazing.
She was from which country?
Germany.
Germany.
And she was born in 1098 and died in 1178, so she had a very long life as well for that time period. And she was alive during the beginning of the Crusades and the birth of the Templar Knights. So that was a really rich kind of tapestry for us to call from for her story. And I met this woman who wrote with me, Stephanie Meyer, at Universal. She was working in the feature film department where I was also temping at the time, and I told her about the story. And she speaks fluent German, so I said, I have this wonderful story that I would love to produce, but we're going to have to write it first because it's a bit eclectic. So she teamed up with me, and we spent a year researching and studying. We actually went to Germany, we met with nuns, we did a tremendous amount of research and wrote this from our hearts.
Yeah.
It was really, really a passion project. And so, put that together and learned as we went what it took to try to pitch a feature film and package it and attach directors and talent. And so our script wasn't made, but her story got made, which was really wonderful. And to me, everything you do informs you. So whether or not you succeed in the end of actually having a project on the screen isn't so important as the process that you take, the journey. In our business especially, I find this to be true, because you're always learning new things that you can apply to your skill sets.
Yeah, I was going to say, I imagine, given the richness of her experience in her life and her journey, discovering it, just the journey that you and Stephanie took to really, dig in and get the authentic truth expressed, it must have just informed so much about your own life. I mean,
Exactly.
it must have been such a source of inspiration for your own life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I believe that that's where our best stories kind of spring from too, is our own experience and how we can incorporate our own personal emotional connections and experiences and truth into our stories.
Mm-hmm.